Hello and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us. All right, hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Constant Sports Podcast. This is your host, Connor Shank, and today we're talking with Kayla Lawson. Thanks for joining us today, Kayla.
Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to this, and a little bit of a newer guest in the industry with General Sports Worldwide. Kayla's got a really cool background with different positions with the Phoenix Suns, Arena Sports Group, did a little bit of time with a nonprofit organization as well, and then now obviously with General Sports Worldwide and the clubhouse. And so we'll dive into those positions as we get here. And throughout this podcast, we're going to cover things from building your network, creating those important connections within the sports industry, working in the sports industry, ticket sales, consulting, and then kind of some day-to-day stuff that Kayla does to make her a top-notch employee over there at General Sports Worldwide. So Kayla, let's just jump right into it, and let's talk about a little bit about kind of your journey into, I guess, before your career, but you got a sports management degree. It was at South Alabama, correct?
Correct. Yep. Go Jags.
Yep, go Jags. There it is. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about, did you kind of fall into that degree? Was that, okay, look at this, I don't like biology and chemistry, I like sports. Kind of tell us about kind of how you got into that and graduated with that degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Connor, for the introduction. So, just like most people who are college students, I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I went into the sports industry, or I went into my college degree thinking that I wanted to be a nurse. And quickly, by year two, I was like, I don't like hospitals. I don't like needles. I don't want to deal with patients. So I'm not really sure why I thought that going into the medical field was the field for me. So I started doing a little bit of research and kind of did a self-evaluation my sophomore year of college and was like, okay, so what do I enjoy? What do I love? And so I used to go to so I'm from Alabama, born and raised, big Alabama fan, Roll Tide.
There it is.
And I grew up going to Bama games my entire life with my family and my parents. And that's all I really knew about the sports industry as a quote, sports industry. And so I really wanted to do something that kind of tied into my background of going to games and having fun and that experience. And so a gentleman I knew, he had just started the sports management department, so to say. Now it's a department. It was just a theory of a degree then.
Yep.
And he started it and he was like, hey, like, why don't you join me? And so my sophomore year, I switched over to sports management. And honestly, it was the best decision I could have made. I wasn't really sure what that meant. I think a lot of people have this idea of, oh, I want to be a general manager, or I want to be a scout, or I want to be a president of a team. But I didn't really have those ideas. I just was like, oh, sports industry is fun. That's cool. I've grown up playing sports, going to Bama games. I knew all of this, but I wanted to make a career out of it. And so changing my degree my sophomore year was the best thing that I could have done.
Got it. Yeah, and it sounds like a few pieces kind of fell in place, and obviously, and those right people, I guess, put you on that path. And then that kind of leads me to my next question with mentors and things like that and connections. But you got a LinkedIn in-mail message, I believe, that kind of transformed your career, so to speak. So talk to us, the listeners and viewers here, kind of about what that message was and how it prompted you to kind of take that next step.
Yeah, so funny, I graduated college, and like most people who are in, graduating, they're like, oh, I'm going to go into the sports industry. Yeah. Okay, but that job didn't land right after I graduated.
Right.
I actually, to give you a little bit of background, I took a job with a city that I lived in, did a little bit of event management, and I'm putting that in air quotes because I ended up being a low-grade maintenance worker, and I hated it. I was like, this is not it for me. I am not learning anything about event management. And so ultimately, I made the decision that I was going to go to grad school. I had been accepted into a program already. And so the next couple of months, I was just going to, have fun and enjoy life. And I'd been in college for, 4 years, and all 4 of those years, I never took a summer off. I was constantly learning, studying. And so I wanted to be able to have a little bit of time before I jumped into the career life. And so I made that decision. And so while I was on vacation, I got a LinkedIn message from a recruiter who I thought was a recruiter. He ended up not being a recruiter. He was just the hiring manager at the time. And it reached out to me and said, "Hey, you'd be a great fit for this role at the Phoenix Suns. It's an inside sales position." I thought it was spam, and to this day, 𝗬𝗵𝗿𝗶𝗴 was the one who hired me. He still gives me crap to this day because I really thought it was spam and it was junk. And so he sent me the job description. 3 interviews later, I got the job, and I was moving over to Phoenix, Arizona, where I'd never been before. And a girl from a small town in Alabama, I was a little bit like, okay, what am I getting myself into? I'm moving in a time span of, I accepted the job, and then 5 days later, I was in Phoenix, apartment, and it was a little bit of a whirlwind, but it was the best decision I could have made. And what's great is now I am a recruiter, and we'll probably dive into that in a little bit, but I always suggest answering the recruiter. That LinkedIn message really changed my life and changed my trajectory, and was able to give me that first opportunity into the sports industry. And without that, who knows where I would be today. But I kudos to ~𝗬𝗫𝗿 for reaching out. I was apparently all the right things that LinkedIn recruiter was looking for at the time. And so it started my career at the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool story. And shout out ~𝗬𝗫𝗿 there for the plug. And so let's talk a little bit about the Phoenix Suns briefly with your time there. As you were with inside sales kind of consultant, you worked your way up a little bit in some different capacities. So maybe, I guess we'll say that was your first, I guess, not real, first job within sports, you could say, right? Kind of your day to day. So what was that like, going from that after graduating and working some other jobs, and then to finally be in sports? Was it everything you imagined? Was it not? Kind of give the listeners and viewers kind of an insight look on that.
Yeah, I'm here to give the tea. So I started my career obviously with the Phoenix Suns on inside sales. It wasn't what I expected. So on the job description, if you look at job descriptions today and inside sales, it's, you're making 80 to 100 calls a day. You're meeting with people. You are doing all these things that kind of led me to believe that I was going to be, the only representation of sales I had was your car salesman. And I did not want to do that. And I did not want to sit at a call center. So I was a little hesitant when I really started at the Suns. I thought it was spam the entire time, like I said. And I still, even when I went into the first day, I was like, is this real life? I'm working for the Phoenix Suns. And so it was just a great experience. I learned the ins and outs of sales, how to meet with people, how to talk to people on the phone. I think that's such a valuable thing that I learned, that, you can talk to your friends every day, but conducting business on the phone is way different than anything else I'd ever learned previous to that. And then conducting, Zooms and conducting face-to-face meetings. I think a lot of it taught me a lot of the foundations of how to work in a business, how to hustle. I think the biggest thing for me, and I always tell people who are, looking to get into the sports industry or looking to start their career, is what are things that can't be taught? Being enthusiastic, coming in every single day with a positive attitude and a positive mindset was what I did. Hustle. I knew that I would be out working and hustling every single person on my team. I got in early. I left late. Moving from Alabama to Phoenix, you don't really have any friends. And so my career was my life at the time. And so work-life balance, I didn't know what that was. So don't take my advice on that. But it was a great experience because I was able to really, outwork everybody. I had the enthusiasm. And I was coachable a lot. You could tell me, hey, every single time I jumped on the phone, I would ask, what could I do better? How could I actually win that sell? Or if I did win the sell, how could I get a little bit further and upsell that person? So, that ultimately led me to being promoted when I was at the Suns. And I talk a lot about the career path or the career part. But the personal development that I learned was a lot too. Personally, I was, moving from Alabama to Phoenix. I learned how to be on my own and how to really put my career first and put myself first before other people. And, a big thing when I was, starting out my career is networking, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but really having the right people in your corner is key. And so when I first started, I wanted to learn as much as possible. So I would talk to people who were in the same position as I was. So reaching out to people who were working on inside sales for the Pistons, or they were working on inside sales for the Lions, people who were in other leagues. I wanted to learn what they were doing so then I could implement that into my game. I also would reach out to people who had jobs that I thought were intriguing and who were above me and leaders, because I just wanted to know, how did they get to where they are, and how did they grow, and what can I implement in my day to day. And then same thing with, internally, I leaned heavily on my inside sales managers who, they were dealing with people who had just graduated college, who had no idea what they were doing. So props to them. But they were able to give us guidance and say, hey, they're coaching us on, and I know I just mentioned this sales piece, but coaching us on, how to dress professional, how to speak to others, how to approach the networking piece. And so, ultimately all those things led to me becoming promoted. They started our team at the Suns, actually started a new group. It was called Arena Sports Group, where we really focused on the ancillary properties. So we focused on the WNBA, the IFL, the G League at the time. And it was great because you had your Suns employees who were really focused on the Phoenix Suns, but then you also had us who were really focused on making those ancillary properties better. And so that's where I kind of got my first taste of servicing a membership experience, so to say. And I was on that team for about 3 months, and then was promoted back to the Phoenix Suns side of things to really focus on our members and our member experience. So focusing on retention, creating events for our members, making sure that their experience was great and retaining them year over year, but then also having that sales piece too, the new business side and the upselling side with those clients. So ultimately was at the Suns for about 3 years, and it was an incredible experience.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of golden nuggets in there, whether it was, hustling, working hard, obviously, but then I like the kind of the personal, I guess, skills and learning with the communication and how to conduct, meetings, you can say, which is some of the, I guess, lost art maybe in school or grad school, whatnot, that's not, something that's typically like, okay, this is how you can conduct this, or this is how you go about this type of meeting or things like that. And I think those are all, you kind of only learn some of those skills when you're actually in the action and doing, your first or second job. And so that's huge.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing too is just since COVID, there's been a lot of, obviously we're doing this over Zoom. There's been a lot of in-personal things that have been taken away. And so learning those skills previous to COVID happening, and all of the world going digital was very valuable, because now, you can conduct emotion, you can evoke emotion in conversations, even if, we couldn't see each other. And I know you guys can't see us right now, but, it makes the emotion there rather than, just kind of being behind a wall, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, for sure. And then, obviously those skills are something that you can use for the rest of your life, going on in different positions and things of that nature. And so as you kind of worked your way up, you were there for three years or so with the Suns, and then now you did a little bit of time at the nonprofit. But I really kind of want to dive into general sports worldwide, as it's not, I guess this could be a knock on me, so don't hate me, but I wasn't too familiar with kind of what it was, what it was about. And we actually are connected from Stuart, who I had on podcast a few weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, you got to check these guys out, talk to Kayla. And so obviously we're here now. So maybe just give us a quick kind of overview, or quick elevator pitch of what General Sports Worldwide is, and / the clubhouse.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to note is I did work for a nonprofit. I just want to touch on that real quick. I worked for a nonprofit at St. Mary's Food Bank doing corporate fundraising. And so I did that about a year and a half. And the reason I want to touch on that is because the relationships that I built at the Phoenix Suns when I was, retaining clients and on the membership service team were the exact same clients that I was dealing with at the nonprofit. So it was a little bit of a relationship building asset to that. And so it was a different type of sell quote. It's not a sell, it's a fundraising tactic, but They knew who I was and they trusted me when I worked at the Sun. So it was an easier ask and an easier give for them when I moved over to the nonprofit. So, and in that time at the nonprofit, you know, I've touched on the networking and the building relationships piece. I was able to continue those relationships that I built in the sports industry because I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do next, but I knew that my heart belonged in the sports industry. I just didn't know in what capacity and what asset. And so while I was at the nonprofit, I continued to network, continued to have Zoom calls, continued to just have conversations with people who are in the sports industry that have done different things that I never had experience with. And so my relationship with 𝗬𝗵𝗿𝗶𝗴, who hired me at the Phoenix Suns, he actually came to me with a job opportunity. He said, "Hey, we're looking for a manager to come over at General Sports." I didn't know what General Sports was at the time either, so no hard feelings there. But it was everything aligned and it was great, and it was all because of the relationships that I had built when I first started my career. So I just wanted to touch on that for a quick second.
Yeah, no, yeah, great plug there, and it shows kind of to your credit the point of, you know, not making networking kind of that's like a hot topic word, like, oh, I got to meet all these people, but kind of really building those relationships and not just trying to get something out of it, but also trying to make it a win-win for both sides, a two-way street. And that goes to show whether it's, you know, the nonprofit kind of fundraising industry or whether that's sports or whatnot, it can go both ways as long as you have that, you know, solid foundation of a relationship with the other individuals and things like that. So that, yeah, no, I love that. That was awesome.
Yeah, so it's all about the relationships that you're building. I think at the end of the day, it's you could have conversations one-off with somebody, and that conversation might not go anywhere. And you, like you said, Connor, you want to make sure that it is two-way beneficial conversation. But at the same time, you know, it's not just about that one and done conversation. It's really about how you continue to build those relationships over time. Because, you know, what might happen is later on you might end up, you know, having somebody that you want to hire for a role or vice versa. So a little bit about General Sports. So we are a full sports management agency, and our division really focuses on the executive search, the consulting, and the sales and leadership side of the business. So what that means is we'll go into a sports team or sports organization and really help them find A-level talent. We'll help them consult on best practices, and then we'll also lead their sales and leadership trainings as well. So talking through best practices that we've seen throughout different organizations, different leagues, and different industries. So not just the sports industry, but we don't just work with organizations or teams. We work with vendors, agencies, startups, anything that really touches the sports industry. We really have a focus and we help with. So my specific job, I really focus on the executive search piece and then the sales and leadership training piece as well. So really diving into the executive search, we really try to find anybody who is looking to hire. We're trying to help them find A-level talent in the sports industry. And that's based on, you know, people we might know. So the connections, the relationships that we've built, or it could be based on LinkedIn search that we've done. So and we typically focus on the director level all the way up to president, C-level, CEO, CRO, but, and then the leadership and the sales training. So training people who are just like me on inside sales, on, you know, tactics that I think are great, best approaches, best practices that we've seen throughout not just the sports industry, but mostly in the sports industry.
Got it. So it's how long kind of is, I guess it probably depends if you found someone quick that is a perfect fit for the job. But is this, you know, like you hire a client, you could say a team and organization, and then it's like a 6-month process, or what kind of factors go into that process?
Yeah, so it's various. I don't have a direct answer, but we try to pride ourselves on really finding A-level talent pretty quickly for these companies and these organizations. So we would say anywhere, if this team is, or organization, vendor, agency, whatever it may be, if they're looking to hire somebody really quickly and they want somebody within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll get them somebody. So we have a quick turnaround. We will, you know, hop on the project as soon as the contract is signed. We will hop on the project and have candidates by the end of that week for that company. So then, you know, we conduct kind of the first round of interviews, getting to know that candidate, researching them, getting through their resume, and then we'll provide the company with the best candidates in the position who we think could do the job and is the best fit for the role.
I see. I got it. Okay. And then as you've kind of grown within your career and within your role, have, you know, five-ish, whatever, 10 years ago, whatnot, did you ever see yourself working for a company like General Sports Wide? Did you ever, you know, feel like, okay, this is where I'll be when I'm, you know, when I'm in this far in my career?
No, I didn't. I'm laughing because I think 10 years ago I'd never dream of being in the position that I'm in right now. 10 years ago I didn't even, I think I was just starting into the sports industry and didn't even know what I was doing. So
Yeah.
so I think, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given, and I know I've touched on this multiple times, but it's based on the relationships I've really built over the time that
Mhm.
I've been in the sports industry. And even prior to that, being in college, I didn't touch on this, but I did everything and anything that had to do with the sports industry as far as volunteer hours. We called it service hours, is what it was called.
Got it.
So we had a certain amount of service hours that we had to get each semester, and I just went above and beyond because I knew however much experience I could get would set me up for success in the future. And that ultimately landed me the job with the Phoenix Suns. But I wouldn't imagine where I am, and I'm so grateful to be where I'm at, working for an executive search firm, doing the sales and leadership training where, 8 years ago, I had just started my career in the sports industry. So you telling me that I'm going to be able to train people and lead trainings for Inside Sales Rep, I would have never thought of it. And so I think it's such a great opportunity on my end. And I get to talk to people who are looking to get in the sports industry and looking to take their career to the next level. And I think that's the most valuable piece for me is I get to build relationships with people who are in college, or they're just starting out in their career, or they've been in their career for 2 to 3 years. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's next. And so being able to guide and have those conversations with people has really, been rewarding for myself. And then even, on the flip side of that, the executive search piece, talking to people who had been in the industry for 10, 15 years. I'm still learning today, and I continue to be a sponge. And so learning from them and then also helping them find their next career path is just so valuable to me.
Yeah, no, very cool. And it's probably very cool, you know, fulfilling to see that kind of start to, you know, maybe not finish, but start to, you know, when they get a job or get hired or whatnot. But I want to touch a little bit on kind of the, I guess, the younger sports professionals, because that's predominantly where the audience is. 19 to 24, 25 is kind of the, you know, 80% of the listeners. And so for them, just getting into the sports industry, as you work with a lot of those types of individuals and whatnot, are there you know, maybe some tips, some tricks, kind of best practices on how to, whether it's stand out or kind of put them, you know, at the top of the resume stack, you could say.
Yes. So I can't believe I'm just now mentioning this on this call. And it's a great resource. It's the Clubhouse.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if listeners have heard it or not. It's the clubhousecareers.com. So it's a career development platform focused on just what you were saying, the demographic of 22 to 25-year-olds who are looking to get into the sports industry and really looking to take their career to the next level. So there's a wide range of content on there. There's blogs written by mentors, which I'll get into in a second.
Mhm.
Blogs, there is training videos on various topics, whether that be how to interview, how to dress, keys to success, what books to read. We have webinars each month. We're hosting webinars, live webinars on various topics, whether that be career development platform or career development topics, such as, how to get your start in career in sales, how to become more self-developed
Yep.
throughout your career, and focusing on your mental health as well. So we have a partnership on the Clubhouse with 𝗬𝗵𝗿, who has his own nonprofit that is focused on making mental health aware in the sports industry. And so we have webinars on that each month, and there's several webinars on demand. And then also we have a mentorship piece. So really having over 160 mentors who are in the
Wow.
sports industry, who are looking to really help those who are young, who are early in their career, to really try to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, we've all been in a college student's shoes. We've all been in that entry level position where we're like, what are we doing? What do I want to do? What is next? And so this is where the mentors are actually giving you advice and helping you conduct conversations and really helping you grow your career. And all of that, the blogs, the mentorship piece, the webinars, the training videos, all of that is $7 a month. And what we like to say is that's either a coffee or a beer you're not getting in that month time span. So pretty affordable, but it's such a great resource and great asset to people who are looking to get in the sports industry. I think I'm not going to speak for you, Connor, but I know if I was, starting out my career, I would definitely highly use this all the time. And just as long as it's a networking piece, and you're learning and you're becoming a sponge. So I think that's such a valuable asset to the sports industry.
No, I'm with you. And yeah, I think, resources like the Clubhouse and others where you can get actually connected, as we've kind of talked a little bit about, but finding someone that, is whatever, a director, an executive at a level like they had to climb the ladder to get there, and it's via LinkedIn or I guess their company website. It shows you kind of like their track record of how they went from A to B to C to D. And so if you just kind of reverse engineer that, I'm making it sound extremely easy, but it's not as easy as it may sound. But I feel like it gives you a good, foundation of, okay, this is kind of, a path you could take. And obviously everyone's path is a little bit different and from A to Z, but, resources like this, obviously, and we'll link kind of the website and the different programs and whatnot later, online and on the website and for the podcast. But yeah, I think it's, very beneficial for those kind of just getting into the sports industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's anybody who wants to be in the sports industry, and it's the entertainment industry as well. We have somebody on our page that is from Yelp, who she used to work in the sports industry, and she transitioned into a content media role with Yelp. And so it's kind of, we're trying to still, grow that entertainment asset to it, because a lot of people I talk to, they might be later in their career and they want to transition out. Maybe they want to transition into the sports industry and they've been in real estate their entire lives. And so being able to talk to people who are relatable in that sense of, hey, I did this and now I'm in the sports industry. And so there's also a wide range of different departments. So not just sales, you have entertainment, you have community relations, you have media, marketing, operations, so many wide range of departments of, career trajectories that is very valuable to just network and talk to different people to learn what you like. And I think a lot of people kind of mishap the idea of, okay, well, I don't like this. I think it's really great to know what you don't like and what you don't want to do in your career. So just finding out what those things are and building out a pros and cons list. If you're early in your career, I highly suggest, writing down after each event that you work or internship, really evaluating what those pros and cons are of, hey, I really enjoy building relationships and talking to people, but I really do not like, social media marketing. I don't like posting on social media and coming up with content. So really getting, kind of narrow in on what you do and do not like is really key, especially when you're early in your career. And, even if it's not early in your career, even if you're, 27, 28 years old listening to this podcast, I think finding out what your pros and cons are for each job and what you really do like is really key in this industry.
Oh yeah, of course. And I agree with that 100%, is figuring out what you don't want to do and then just don't do that, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to hate everything about whatever you kind of go down. And there's plenty of jobs within sports. There's minor league teams, there's, kind of sports, I guess, properties and whatnot that are, groups that are in sports, non-sports. There's a bunch of avenues. So it's not necessarily like you have to do a job that you hate just because you want to work in sports. So that's
don't take a job. Don't take a job if you don't like anything about it and you just want to be in the sports industry. Saying getting your foot in the door, and I'm putting that in air quotes, and I know I've done air quotes a lot, but getting your foot in the door is the last thing any hiring manager or recruiter wants to hear. So just a big piece of advice, try to stay clear of that. Even if you are just trying to get your foot in the door, it just shows that you're going to jump at the next opportunity in the sports industry, or you're going to just try to move on very quickly. And most people who are hiring want somebody long-term and somebody who's going to be dedicated. And that even if it was your, my foot in the door in the sports industry was with the Phoenix Suns and inside sales, I ended up staying there for 3 years. But
Right.
if I could give any piece of advice, it's try to stay away from, if you're looking to get in the sports industry, don't say you're trying to get your foot into the door, because no recruiter and no hiring manager likes that.
Yeah, no, we'll put that in asterisks and put that in bold, when we release this. But is there kind of in an interview, I guess, process, you do a lot of those. Is there something that, maybe some, I don't know if it's keywords, but is it when they, my question, I guess, can someone know too much information about the interviewer? Or is that a little, you see what I'm saying? Like if you were interviewing Kayla and I was like, oh, like I rattled off your previous history, like where you went to college, like is there too much information kind of to do on the person?
So I say this in my sales training: you know enough information to be dangerous, but don't know enough information to be creepy.
Yep,
So
I love that. Yep.
so there's a fine line right there. So doing a little bit of research, finding out, what those correlations are, as far as, I went to South Alabama. If that person, saw the South Alabama Mississippi State game 3 years ago, maybe that's a little bit of a correlation. That might be a
Uh-huh.
little bit of a push, but don't just say things that are out of the blue, like, hey, your favorite color is blue, and it's just kind of weird that you might know that.
Yep.
So there's just a fine line as far as, what don't be creepy, but be a little dangerous, so that you can figure out how you can correlate each two
Mhm.
together.
No, yeah, I love that. I love that saying. And I just asked because I've talked to a few kind of people that are doing interviews and whatnot, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I need to get as much information as possible." And I agree with that aspect, but definitely find the line of, all right, you don't need to know the dog's name going forward. That's not pertinent to the interview, right? Just company background, things like that.
Personally think that you should do some research ahead of time, but don't over plan and over prepare, because that
Mm.
might set you back a little bit, because you might be focused and worried about the wrong things. I think, for me, when I'm, preparing for a sales training, or preparing for an interview, or preparing for whatever that might be, sometimes I will get bogged down and have to, have
Mm.
everything planned and everything to a T, but the conversation just kind of flows. So making sure that you know enough information about whoever you're talking to, or whatever company you're interviewing for, but also, let the conversation flow and let the conversation come as is, and learn things about that person on the call. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to, like the dog comment,
Right.
that doesn't fit.
Yep.
So you don't need to know that information, but making sure you know kind of key points and how you would like the conversation to flow, but also being understanding that the conversation doesn't always flow how you want it to, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, no, with you there. And making it flow, I think, is the biggest part. Just to have enough information and enough, kind of goes back to our earlier points with communication and talking to people. Those types of things, I think, in my opinion, are more important than knowing all the information that you need, right? Just being able to have a conversation and communicate kind of your thoughts and points and things like that goes a long way during the interview process, and not just in the interview process, but whether that's in your full-time job, things like that. And then
Absolutely.
Kayla, before we let you go here, we just want to wrap up with a little some no huddle kind of quick hitters, just for the listeners and viewers. I guess now that we talked about too much information, we're just going to go right into some information about you. So,
Okay.
if you ever interview or are in an interview and someone lets one of these questions rip, I guess we'll know where they got the information from. But we'll do
Okay.
if you ever interview or are in an interview and someone lets one of these questions rip, I guess we'll know where they got the information from. But we'll do your favorite athlete of all time to start.
So funny. I actually don't have a favorite athlete, because I Googled this before. I was like, who is my favorite athlete? I have no idea. It's so interesting because I work in the sports industry, but I kind of removed myself from sports. I'll go to a basketball game, a football game, but not really a big sports person anymore.
No, okay. Perfect. Well, what about we'll do like a sports business leader, someone that works, I guess maybe not in sports, but a business leader that is tied to sports, you could say.
Yeah, so I would say Travis Apple. He's a great
Okay.
mentor of mine. He has a podcast of his own, and he also has a book out. So it's 52 weeks of hustle, and then how to hustle your way to success, which is in sports sales, which is a great, valuable asset to anybody who's looking to get in the sports industry. But he's helped me a lot over the last couple of years of getting to where I'm at. He was also my boss a couple of years ago. So huge kudos to him for the career path I'm on too.
Perfect. Yeah, shout out there. And then we'll do kind of one more here. If you could go back in time and witness any sporting event, this might not be great because you said you kind of moved yourself from sports, but is there one that you would go to, maybe a live event, entertainment?
Yes. So, entertainment wise, I am a huge concert person.
Okay.
I would love to see the Grateful Dead, the original Grateful Dead,
There we go.
in person. That would be great. Or R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett. He's from, right where I'm from in the
Yep.
Gulf Coast of Alabama, and he's one of the big prominent people in the Gulf Coast, and so I would have loved to see him. But on the sports front, the 1956 national championship with Alabama. I would have loved to have been there. That's the first one. So,
All right, there we go. A little roll tide action as we conclude here. But
hey,
thanks, Kayla,
yes.
for jumping on and sharing all the nuggets there. The listeners, viewers, I know are going to get a lot out of this episode podcast. And so that concludes another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. And obviously, a special thanks to Kayla for sharing their experiences, knowledge, and some stories here. You'll be able to find this episode on Spotify, Apple, along with YouTube and anywhere you find your podcast. So before we go, Kayla, we'll give you the floor here for the next minute, 30 seconds to a minute, kind of wrap up and give us your, maybe any parting advice before we go.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Connor, for having me on your podcast and talking to all of you about growing your career in the sports industry, getting into the sports industry. I think the biggest thing is a few key nuggets. Networking, building relationships is going to be key, whether you're a sophomore in college or if you're a VP. I think continuing to build relationships and learning from others is key. Staying positive and having enthusiasm, working hard, out hustling everyone. Those things are things that can't be taught, and those things you can do better than anybody else as long as you're in control of those. At the end of the day, you're in control of all of those things that I just mentioned. So continue to work hard. Check out the clubhouse. It's a great career asset for those who are looking to get into the sports industry and taking their career to the next level. But I appreciate the time, and thank you so much, Connor.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That concludes another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. Like I said, thanks again for Kayla and those parting advice, and we'll see you guys next week.